All right, today I'm just waiting for my buddy. Got a lot of work to do today. I don't know how long it's going to take him to get here because yesterday he would have already been here. He knocked on my door, opened my door yesterday, and I heard the ruckus, and I was like, "Marvin, you get out!" He's like, "Who's Marvin?" It's like, "Oh, I thought you were my squirrel." So far, I don't think Marvin has been in here last night. It's hard to tell, but it doesn't look like he's been in here last night. I don't see any extra mess or anything. With him, it's hard to say. He comes in for like 2 minutes and then he chews on the peanut butter lid can thing, which I'm going to leave it there because, yeah, it draws him back in. But if I take it away, he might tear the house apart looking for the darn peanut butter, and that would be a disaster. Oh, my buddy. Maybe he chose to sleep in for the extra hour thing. See, I hate daylight savings time because I don't really care about getting an extra hour of light in the morning. I really don't. I'd rather have an extra hour of light in the evening. I'd rather do away with daylight saving. It's not World War One anymore. The factory's got lots of lighting in it. Just get rid of daylight savings. I freaking hate it. It takes me 6 months to adjust to it, and then they change it again. um, but Yeah, I think Mexico tried daylight saving time once, and it messed them up so bad they said they'd never do it again. Like I think there's a couple of Western provinces. I don't know if it's Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Alberta that got rid of daylight saving time, but I know some of them have got rid of it. Oh, I thought I heard something. But anyway, yeah. So um, I probably won't be recording for another couple of days. So today, got to finish up the annuals. I'm pretty sore from yesterday. A lot of raking yesterday. A little bit of brush cutting with the annuals or whatever. But a lot of raking, a lot of raking. And yesterday I used the hay fork for the annuals, so at least I'm not as sore as I would be if I just used my rakes. But today, I don't think it's going to take us too long today because it's really 3 garden beds that we got to do, and then we just got to rake them out. So hopefully it's only like an hour or two, and then we can go on to the school, get an hour or two there. That's sweeping and mopping, so that's not too bad. And then after that, I got to vote for new mayor. Got to vote for my dad because he's canceling my aunt. Yeah. There's a couple of new. One of my friends is running, and I don't think anybody's running up against her. So obviously, I'll vote for her. Hopefully, she does well. I don't know. I don't know if she realizes what she's getting into, but it's like, we'll see. You'll find out. You'll find out. You'll either like it or you won't. The thing is that if you run for any sort of a council spot, just like people are going to hate you. Just understand that. Like if you, it's just like there's always there's a lot of like everybody has different ideas of how things got to be run, right? And for me, it's like just as long as it's not costing the taxpayers more, uh, you know, and making life harder for us. Like we really don't need much in the rural areas. You know what I mean? Like we don't need all these try like there's some people that come in with these ideas that we got to get all this, make everything really fancy and like the city. We don't have to compete with the city. That's the whole charm of the place. Is like, oh, we need to draw in more business, so people build homes up here. No, you know what I mean. The charm of the place is that there's not that many people here. You know what I mean? I don't like these big developments going everywhere. Oh, but it's great it booms the town. That's not what the town's about. You know what I mean? Like that's the point of moving away from the city is so that you're away from that. You know what I mean? Not every town that has to prosper big, 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 big. It's like anyway, I digress. But yeah, so I got the strings changed on my Charvel, and I've got the bass strings to change. I have enough money in my bicycle fund that because I won't be buying a bicycle anytime soon for the winter, right? But I have that money aside, which I could buy the bass amp and still have money left over, and maybe a guitar amp, and then not have any money left over. And then I'll take care of those two items, and then I can work on a bike next year. Hopefully, I have a car by then, so it won't be as critical. But the bike I can always put on a credit card. I am going to get a good road bike though, something that I really enjoy. But like, guys, like I am so sore. Like my buddy was saying the same thing. He's like, "Oh, I can't wait to finish the season because, it's like like I'm not sore from the day. I'm sore from the season, just working so damn hard. Like my femur bones and my pelvis are just I forget that what that socket's called there. Like I don't have the sciatica going on right now, but just the grind. My knees are starting to pop as I walk. You know what I mean? Like it's like my body needs freaking rest. You know what I mean? The balls of my feet are sore all the time. Just being in these work boots all the time, right? So like I need I need to be off my feet. I've yet to have a day where I've been off my feet for the day. You know what I mean? Like I need that. It's just like I haven't stopped at all this season, which I'm not complaining in that sense, but it just like, but I also know what my limitations are, right? So, like if I work like 3 days a week throughout the winter, I'd be happy with that. 2 days, yeah, that'd be fine. It'll be hard, but it'll be fine as long as a little money's coming in. As long as I can cover my expenses, right? Because I really want to get down to like, okay, I got like 4 days in a row, 2 weeks in a row to just work on, videos, recording. Yeah, that's really where I want to be focusing my attention, right? And the thing about that is, like, I don't like the okay, day on, day off, 2 days on, day off. I don't like that because it's like the day off, like you're still wiped out from the week. So it's like I'm gonna do all this stuff, and it's just like, but on my days off, I'm still gonna be doing work here, which is still work. Okay, maybe I only do 2 hours of work within the day, just at lollygag speed, but it's still work. You know what I mean? Like I still got a lot of work to do here. You know what I mean? Like cleaning up and stuff like that. Because I want to fall that tree. I got all these other trees to knock down. I got a lot of stuff to do, right? And but I want to rest my body so that I don't go. Like by the springtime, I'm still worn out. I'm even more worn out. You know what I mean? So like, that's kind of what I'm looking forward to is that rest. But I also need money, right? That's the part that kills you is the yeah, no, you're like, I'm going to take these days off and I'll be good. Your financial situation says no. No, you're going to be working. You're on the work till you die program. Yeah, that's life, right? But yeah, if I could muster up the funds for the bass amp and the guitar amp, and then my other guitar app, it can live for now, but if I ever want to do any live playing, like I could use the Hot Rod Deluxe for live playing because it's beyond loud, but the problem with that is it doesn't give me modern sounds, right? So my modern sounding guitars don't really particularly sound great through that amp. And I might modify that amp. I thought about getting rid of it, but I'm just like, well, no, it's a nice tubed amp. Anytime I want that classic rocker sound or for cleans, like it's great. So one of the things I might do is actually replace the 20-year-old tubes in it. Like that amp is 20 years old, guys. My Hot Rod Deluxe is 20 years old. But I'd also like to replace the speaker in it to a nicer sounding, something that just less muddy. You know what I mean? It's a great amp. It sounds okay, but less muddy. You know what I mean? If I could have the amp serviced, I would. But the big thing with that amp is just play it till it dies. You know what I mean? And it's probably got another 20 years in it. Yeah, the transformer's starting to, probably kind of shot in it. But I mean, it works. It works. It does it. It does the job. It still sounds good. You just got to let it warm up a lot longer because of the older tubes. I'm amazed those tubes lasted 20 years. They're the original tubes in that amp. That is incredible. But I'll just put new tubes in it. Just put the JJs in there and be done with it. because like those tubes are like they're they're the whole tube craze of finding the best tone for your tubes. It doesn't really work like that. Like you don't really get that much difference in tone between the tubes. So buying like extremely expensive tubes doesn't really make a lot of difference. It makes that much difference. So if that means something to you, then yes. But if you're looking for drastic difference, no, change the speaker. New tubes will freshen up the amp. Even the cheapest new tubes will sound good. It's the speaker that really makes or breaks your tone. I agree with Glenn Frick on that 100%. But I'd probably go with a larger headroom speaker, not for volume, but for clarity, because I think the speaker's at a 1-to-1 ratio. So it's like a 40-watt speaker with a 40-watt head, which the Hot Rod Deluxe head, the big thing about it is that it has a lot of volume short in. You know what I mean? You get almost all your volume between like 4 and say 2 and 4, and then from 4 to 6 you get a little bit more, and then from 6 to 12 you get just a little bit more. But almost all your tone and volume is going to be played somewhere within the the range of 2 and 4, right? If you want any sort of clean sound, going above 2.5 is kind of like like you'll still have a good clean sound, right? You go like say 3 and up, and it's like, okay, you got a crunch channel, a bigger crunch channel, and a lead channel. Like your clean is completely gone, because you get two things going on. You got tube saturation, which you can sort of control through the bias. So I tend to bias on the cooler side because I tend to use guitars with hotter pickups anyway. So it's just like, yeah, that's going to crank out and, break up almost right away. So you lose the headroom really quick. I tend to always prefer more headroom. I don't usually use any effects in that amp. I really bought that amp with the idea of playing straight through it. And it's a great amp for that, if you have the right pickup setup for it. Where if you have like say I put a 100-watt speaker in there over the whatever 40 watts or whatever that speaker, maybe it's a 60-watt speaker, it's hard to say. I think it's only 40. You get all the headroom, you don't get any speaker breakup, but you can control the bias and have a pure, cleaner tube breakup. So your saturation, it just sounds better. I don't want a modern sounding speaker in there. It is going to be one of the creambacks, I think, would sound best in there. I seen a guy did a shootout with the Hot Rod Deluxe. He did 25 speakers, and it came down to about 3 speakers that are like, yeah, that's the cleans I'd want, and the gains are okay. You know what I mean? If I really wanted a modern sounding speaker with a really flat response, I'd get either a warehouse. Well, they're not flat response, but like a Warehouse Reaper would be like, picture like the 5150 on steroids, but with clarity. Like everything you like about the 5150 or the Vintage 30 sound, but without all the things that you hate about the Vintage 30. You know what I mean? Like Vintage 30s are really cool, but they're real nasally sounding, and they really have that sculpted mid sound, which sounds really cool, but it's like you can't get rid of that sound at all. Like it doesn't do anything else other. Where like my Celestion C90 Black Widows or Black Shadows in my Mesa Boogie Cap, they're great for those 7 and 8 string guitars because it's almost a flat response. So you don't have that natural sculpted mid, but you get all the clarity, right? So those speakers are, actually absolutely wonderful. You know what I mean? I wouldn't put too big of a speaker in there. 100-watt would be the most I would probably go. Like the 250-watt, the 150-watt EVs, stuff like that would be good. But I think the problem with that is that I'd lose too much. I'd have too much headroom, and I wouldn't get enough breakup, right? So, yes, you want as much clarity. It's not about the volume. It's more about the fullness and the clarity. And, maybe a flatter EQ response on the speaker, I think would give just a more like that amp is so out front. It doesn't need any boosts in the mids whatsoever. So I don't know. I'll have to think about like I'd have to think about it like something that can give me a little bit of a sculpted mid, but not so drastic that like you're cranking your mids to 12 all the time. Um, because the problem with the Hot Rod Deluxe is it's so mid range that there's like with the mids on 0, it's like most amps with their mids on 5. You know what I mean? Like that amp cuts through anything. It's like a Ginsu knife. And there's no drummer on the planet that can drown out the Hot Rod Deluxe. No drummer. There's no drummer that can play, and you know how loud drummers can play, right? There's no drummer on the planet that can basically drown out a Hot Rod Deluxe to the point where you can't hear it. Other amps, not so much. Like, and it's not a wattage thing. It's really comes down to the mids. Guitars, like basically dominate the mid range, right? The guitar is an instrument that covers so much sonic range that it tends to overtake everything. Hence why it's such a mainstream. That's why the bass isn't out front. It's like it covers the lower frequencies typically. And then just touches the mid range a little bit. Where the guitar doesn't go as far into the low range, but it covers enough low range, especially if you have like 7 strings and 8 strings, and it covers the mid range like crazy, right? Yeah. So, speaking of mid range, yeah. So when I record my next song, one of the things that I got to keep in mind is the deterioration from going from the BR1200 recording console into the CD, burning to the CD, and then burning the CD or ripping it from the CD to the laptop, going into Windows Movie Maker for the video, and then uploading it onto YouTube, which compresses each one compresses more, and I gotta keep that in mind that where I put the mids, because what happened with the 8 string is a hard guitar to pop the mids out because it's a black hole. I think it sounds so freaking. I still love the main riff for Crystal Eyes when the 8 string kicks in. It's pretty straightforward. It's very doom metal. I was listening to Soundgarden last night. I haven't listened to Soundgarden. I've seen them. I was fortunate enough to see Chris Cornell with Soundgarden years ago at Blues Fest, right, in Ottawa, and stuff like that. And I think it was about a year and a half before he died, maybe 2 years before he died. And they sounded really good. But I was listening to them last night, and like the pinnacle of grunge, right? Grunge music, right? And it's like when you listen to them, it sounds heavy, it's chunky and everything like that. But it's like they really don't have that much gain on those guitars at all. I'm like kind of like Eddie Van Halen, for example, who actually, as he got older, started using more and more gain, more distortion, which is kind of weird. Usually, people go the other way. They start off like tons and tons of distortion, then go less. I'm a guy that just absolutely loves full saturation distortion. Like if you listen to Mark Holcomb, he uses a good chunk of distortion and stuff. But most of these guys don't use anywhere near the amount of gain that we think they use, right? And that cleans up a lot too. Like if you listen to Brett, he does the guitar lessons and stuff like that. That guy, when you're listening to him, like when he plays his leads and stuff like that, he's kind of like Paul Gilbert, where Paul Gilbert really never used a lot of gain, just enough to get a bit of a boost, and that's about it. That's why these guys sound so clean when they play fast. It's because like Yngwie uses a lot of gain but he's using single coils as well, right? Even though the Yngwie single coils are pretty hot, they're double stacked single coils, almost like a humbucker, right? If you ever tried the Yngwie single coils, if you thought hot rails were cool, these things are really cool. But they're like kind of a bit of a one-trick pony. They're not meant really for cleans and stuff. But the thing is that I'm going to try a little less gain, but I love the savagery of the gain I do use. You know what I mean? Like I just love the sag that I get off the, it's almost like a blasting effect, right? So it's just like it works so well, but it compresses an awful lot to the point where when I go do my mix down, I get a little bit too much compression, and I think that's where I get robbed in the mix a bit when I start, transforming it to other forms of medium, like like YouTube or whatever. And I think that's where I got to watch out. So for the next one, I want to make sure that my mids sit maybe a little bit higher, so that if I get more compression every time I mix it down, that things still stay a little bit more even. Because that's what happened with the Crystal Eyes one, where it does. Yeah, mind you, got to understand. Like the drums are, there's two mics on that. Uh, you know, so like one spot where the drums I'm doing a polyrhythm and it kind of sounds a little out, but it actually isn't if you can hear the double bass pedal going. Once you hear the double bass pedal going, it's like, oh, okay, it's actually in time, but it makes the song sound slightly out of time because it like the polyrhythms are off the beat, while the well, if you listen to it really closely, you can hear the double kick going, and it's like, okay, that's on the beat, and then the polyrhythms are off the beat. So it gives a weird phasing kind of effect. So it's in time, but kind of not in time. Um, so you learn things. But like if I had like a perfect studio, and every mic was individually, every drum was individually mic'd. Yeah, you could really smooth that out, and you would hear everything perfectly, right? So when you listen to the grunge stuff from the '90s, like how they recorded that stuff, the thing is they're just banging away on chords. Like they're not. There's a bit of riffs in there, but not a lot of riffs. It's mainly no guitar solos and a lot of chords, right? With Soundgarden, you got a little bit of guitar solos, but not that much. Because like again, it was something people have made video after. Oh, the guitar solo is dead. Meanwhile, you've never seen better super shredders in history. Like the best playing guitar players, based on technical playing abilities. There's never been better players on the planet. You know what I mean? Like it's just the level of musicianship is just, whether you like a style or not is not the issue. It's just like there's guys doing stuff with acoustic guitars that it's like the slap technique thing. That whole thing is just absolutely blows people's minds because it's not something you hear all the time. But once you figure out how they do it, it's impressive. It's hard to do, but it's something you have to do it all the time to get good at it. Like anything, you get good at what you practice. But it's one of those things like like guitar players have never been better, and they're only going to get better. You know what I mean? It's just like I can't imagine how like 20 years from now, if I'm still alive, like what kind of like abilities guitar players are going to have. You still utilizing an instrument that's really hasn't changed much since the 1950s. You know what I mean? Like the version of guitar we have now is basically goes back to the late 40s, early 1950s, and it's stuck in that form. It's just okay. We got more refined versions of a six string guitar, right? Like, but it's still tuned the same, all that. But I do believe alternate tunings is the wave of the future, particularly for the metal bands. Like sticking in standard tuning is fine for some stuff. Like for thrash metal, standard tuning or half step down, E flat standard, perfect, right? You can get plenty heavy, plenty lively, no problem. But like everybody else is starting getting to all these drop tunings and stuff like that. The problem with the drop tuning is every single song you have has a different tuning. It's impossible live because you have to carry so many guitars with you just because you can't, retune your guitar between each song. It's like if you did, you like out of a 2-hour set list, you'd hear like 5 songs because it take all the tuning in between. Yeah, so although they're like you'd see like bluegrass and you know maybe not jazz bands but bluegrass bands, folk bands, like Leona Boyd, she would like tune her guitar in between songs and talk a bit while she was tuning her guitar. And the guitar would go into like 8 different tunings in a night, right? Um, and then of course, as people get money, they just swap out guitars, right? It's like, okay, well now I got 2 guitars, so at least it's, you got to entertain the audience while you're tuning a guitar, and the least way to entertain your audience is for the band to tune. Like the band needs to be tuned going on stage, right? And I'd rather swap out a guitar than tune on stage. I really, 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 unless I have no other choice, right? Like if you're just a one man band doing acoustic stuff, no problem because you can just, if you're a little sharp, a little flat, doesn't matter. But when everybody's got to be tuned together, uh, that happened in that gig from 1995. The bass player when he broke a string on his bass, and he grabbed the other bass. The bass was tuned a half step higher, and it messed him up, messed me up, messed the other guitar player up, and then the song kind of fell apart. And then we realized that it was the bass player was out, but he didn't. Like everybody knew somebody was out, but we didn't know who was out, right? So it kind of botched the song. I mean, it happens. You don't take it personally. It's like, oh, it happens. But like your backup guitars, if you're gonna, every guitar you bring should be tuned, like including your backup guitars. Don't bring the backup guitars with I'll just have it there. No, no, no. Tune it. You don't have to change the strings on it, but make sure it's tuned, right? Yeah, but yeah, all that stuff, like the EQing and everything like that. For the like again, it's stuff that you learn when you're recording. Like I say, if you can afford to go to an actual recording studio, uh, even if like get a song down, a really simple song. Well, it doesn't have to be simple, but a song that you can record in one day. Okay, within a couple hours. Okay, get all the parts, even if it's like a live in the studio thing with your band. That's probably the cheapest, easiest way to record. Just go in there and kind of like take notes of how they're doing it, so that when you get the mix and how they do the mix down and everything like that, and you go do it, and then it's just like, hey, that's pretty cool. Well, perhaps we can do this stuff. And there's enough YouTube videos on how to record properly. It all starts with the source. It all starts with the source. So direct in is obviously going to give you the easiest method. Like miking amps and stuff like that is harder. And that's something that I've been doing is miking the amps, right? So, but the thing with miking the amp, the downside to that is simple, is that that's what gives you that, it sucks away a lot of mids and muddies things up when you've now got a microphone in the link in the chain of recording, right? Where if you're just direct in and using the digital signal, no problem. But if you want those really lively sounds, I know newer digital stuff can do it, but if you want feedback, you really almost can't get it digitally. You can, but it usually, usually you don't. Like you get a more sterile sound. You don't get the lively sound of a real amp sitting on the floor. You know what I mean? And I prefer the live amp sitting on the floor. It's getting, the balance of all those frequencies that you're going to need. So not too much low end. I do suck away a lot of low end at the source, believe it or not. Even with the H string, like there was very little low end I put on there, and I should have put less low end on there and just added it in the BR1200, which because I can, right? That would have probably cleaned up the guitar. Like I go to the point where I usually have the bass on 0 on my guitar amp. Yeah, it sounds thin and weak at the point, but it's clear. And I think what I'm going to do from now on is that's the way I'm going to go. Just take away that low end, because from the source, whatever's there is there. You can add, but you can't take away. Where, if you have, the EQing done on there, it's like, okay, get your bass sound, get the bite where you want it, get the mids where you want it, approximately, get the sound set up, but try to get the sound as neutral as possible, and then shape it in the BR1200 with that EQ, and then that way I won't get that kind of muddy tunnel effect that you kind of get. So it's going to be a bit of a trial and error to see if I can get right. I'm sure the Charbel is going to have an easier time because it's a brighter sounding guitar to begin with, and a clearer sounding guitar to begin with, right? So right there, I've already got the advantages from like when Glenn Frick from Spectre Studio says the guitar doesn't matter. It does. If he's talking just about tone, he's sort of correct that, from one metal guitar to the next metal humbucker guitar to the next humbucker guitar, there's not that much variation. You'd be hard pressed to pick most of them out in a mix. But what does make a difference, and this is something I noticed with my Mark Holcomb guitar and the Alpha and Omega pickups, is how clear they are. Like that little articulation, that the guitar makes a difference on that. The better sounding, the cleaner sounding bridge makes a difference. Like that's what makes the difference, right? So the guitar does matter. Like a really good, less buzzing on the guitar, that makes a difference. The better fretwork. So there's more than just buying a guitar for tone. You know what I mean? Like playability, clarity, and different things teach you different things. Like, the guitars that I like live tend to have really hot pickups. The guitars that sound better recording tend to have, pickups that are way less output. The JB is as hot as you want to get, but if you had a pickup that had about half the output level of a JB and twice the clarity, you would probably prefer that because you can always add gain wherever you want and add low end wherever you want and add whatever wherever you want, but you can't take it away from the core sound, right? So that's the is what it is factor of it. And the other angle is, quite simply, is that you don't, less is more. You don't need that much. So for Pinto, yes, as much as I love the wild sounding gain I have, yes, I am going to go with less gain. I'm going to try both recording the song internally, see how it comes out, but I do want a little bit of feedback, so I really want to use the amp if I can, but I'm going to see if I can clean up the gain a little bit. I know everybody's been saying that. It's just I'm the guy that thinks I can be the exception to the rule. Use mass gain, and I already got that gain dialed back to about half of what that pedal can do. It's ridiculous the amount of gain in that pedal, and I'm gonna pull back the gain a bit, but it's the low end that I'm more worried about because like the gain, yeah, it will muddy up and stuff like that and move a bit of clarity out of there. But the gain also gives you that darkness and the chunkiness and the stuff you like in the metal sounds, right? So it's kind of like high gain gives you kind of that fullness sound that you get when you double track your guitars, right? So like if you pull back on the gain and double track your guitars, you kind of get the same effect, right? And you can but when I double track my guitars, what I do is I double track them with two different sounding gains to cover different frequency ranges. So I have a more bitey gain on one guitar. It's a little thinner sounding, but clearer, but more right in your face. And then the other gain's a little more of a saturated, smoother gain to fill in, right? And that I think covers more frequency range. But the principles are still the same, that there's a frequency where you just don't really want to go over. And if you do, what ends up happening is that's when you get the muddiness, the peakiness, and whatever. When I record my input levels, I make sure that I get almost zero peaking off I'd rather have a quieter recording that's clearer than like when I get the volume levels of recording that I like, it peaks. Right? And as soon as you see that red thing peaking, if it peaks a little bit, no problem. But I try to get it, as soon as it's just barely peaking, I just roll it back like maybe not even a notch lower than that. And that seems to give me the cleanest, because when I start doing the mix down and I start adding in other things, low end particularly, you don't get the blurbs, you know what I mean? So learning every time you record, like again, hopefully I get a cleaner recording on the next one. I thought the drum tone was actually, like, again, I got the stock skins on that drum. when I'm listening to the Crystal Eyes, like if you listen to the drum tones that you can hear and the cymbals, okay, yes, the cheapest cymbals ever, or cheapest cymbal. I've only got hi hats and the cymbal, but it sounds pretty good. Like it sounds pretty good. Like when I start doing the polyrhythm part with the 8 string chunking away there, it sounded pretty good. With the EQing there, the problem is that I have to EQ a lot of the mids out to get the smooth low end that I want, which muddies up the double bass drum, right? And there's really no, like with an SM57, getting a real clean sound off a double bass drum. I've experimented quite a bit with where to put the actual, the mic. And what I've come up with is as close to the beaters as possible. It seems to get me the clear sound and attack possible off the bass drum. I can always add the low end after. But, if I put the mic in front of the bass drum, hey, hey, you're alive, you're awake. Huh?